Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience and welcome to the webinar titled Using iHelp to Help Users Help Themselves in Siebel Clinical, presented by Padam Singh and Richard Gavan from BioPharm Systems. I'm Eugene Stepanov, the Marketing Manager at BioPharm, and I will be going over some housekeeping items before I turn it over to Padam and Richard. During the presentation, all participants will be in listen-only mode. However, you may submit questions to the speaker at any time today by typing them in the chat feature located on the left side of your screen. Please note that other webinar participants will not see your questions or comments. Nonetheless, your questions will be addressed as time allows towards the end of the presentation. If you still have unanswered questions after the webinar or would like to request information from BioPharm, feel free to visit the company's website for contact information. As a reminder, today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on BioPharm's website within 24 hours. We will also be emailing you a link to the recording. This concludes our housekeeping items. I would now like to turn the call over to Padam and Richard.
Thank you, Eugene. So welcome, everyone, to today's webinar titled Using iHelp to Help Users Help Themselves in Siebel CTMS. Let me start out by introducing myself. My name is Padam Singh, and I'm the Vice President of the Clinical Trial Management Solution Practice here at BioPharm Systems. I've been working in the industry for the past 13 years and have almost exclusively been working with CTMS and Siebel Clinical during that time. Before joining BioPharm a little over 5 years ago, I was part of Accenture's pharma R&D practice as well and leading Siebel CTMS implementations there. Overall now I've been part of more than 30 projects related to Siebel Clinical, implementations as well as integrations. These vary from implementations for pharma companies, CROs, medical device companies, academic institutions, and also range from anywhere from 30 users to global implementations of over 4,000 users. And I'm also responsible for, my team is responsible for the creation of Ascend, which is our official Oracle Accelerate solution for Siebel Clinical. I'd also like to introduce Richard Gavin, who will be presenting most of the content of today's webinar and also providing us with a live demonstration of Siebel iHelp. Richard is part of our Siebel Clinical implementation team, and his main area of focus has been around training. Richard maintains, edits, updates, and customizes training material for our clients with respect to Siebel CTMS. He also delivers the BioPharm Siebel Administration and Siebel iHelp Administration courses. He also provides ongoing administrative help desk and testing support for all of our clinical applications that we support. In addition to that, he has created the iHelp content package for Ascend and Siebel CTMS, which he will be presenting on today. So now that I've introduced myself and Richard, I'd just like to take a minute to talk about my team here at BioPharm and explain a little bit more about what we do before we get into the key topic for today's webinar. We provide a variety of services and products related to clinical trial management. We manage implementations of Siebel Clinical, whether those are our custom implementations or implementations of our Siebel Clinical Accelerator Ascend. We also implement Oracle Health Sciences LabPass, which is Oracle's Phase 1 automation solution. Also, if you've seen some of our previous webinars, you know that we do extensive work with integrations in Siebel Clinical or LabPass and related systems. Our approach to system implementation is very process-focused, and we also provide our process consulting services to help organizations define and harmonize their SOPs and business process across their organization with respect to clinical trial management. And we offer comprehensive training services and products related to Siebel Clinical and our Ascend solution, including the iHelp content package, which we're going to look at in detail today. So this is just a glimpse of some of the services and products that we offer in this space within my practice. For more information about the products and services that we offer, as well as all the other practices at BioPharm, please feel free to contact us. So here's a look at today's agenda. So we've already covered off welcome and introduction, so we're going to move into just looking at a high level, the basic approaches to Siebel CTMS training. We will then describe what Siebel iHelp is and how it fits into the grand picture of Siebel CTMS training for an organization. We'll then look at its key benefits from both an end-user perspective as well as from an administrative perspective. We'll highlight some specific cases where we can highlight some of the ways iHelp can be beneficial. Then we'll go into a live demonstration of iHelp in our demo environment so you can see it being used firsthand. After the demo, Richard will go over the basics of how to administer iHelp and develop your own iHelp content. And we'll conclude with a summary and leave some time for questions and answers. As a reminder, if you have any questions during the webinar, please submit them in the chat feature and we'll address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. So before I hand it over to Richard, I just want to go over look at some of the various methods available to us for training on a system such as Siebel CTMS. The first is instructor-led. Obviously, this is where the trainer will show how the system works and show how to perform certain tasks. Users can actually follow along with the trainer and perform practice exercises. This has been seen effective in groups of about 15 to 20, sort of small groups that it's really effective for. Some of the pros to this, it really helps reinforce training concepts. It's an effective way to train. Since the users are learning and practicing what is relevant to them, it really helps them retain the information. But some of the cons to this are it does require each user to have a computer or an internet connection, and at times it can be quite expensive and time-consuming, especially if you have a larger organization where you need to do more focused, smaller sessions like this. The next method is e-learning, so where individual users complete one or more training modules with their computer in their own workspace. It's usually interactive and has practice exercises and knowledge checks built in. So the good thing about it is that it is self-paced. It helps users, again, provide exercises to be able to learn concepts. It's there, once you create it, it can be used as a refresher course as well. And it can be cost-effective for larger user groups. But it also is another system that can be expensive and time-consuming to create and update and maintain as well. So if you have a smaller user group, again, it's not necessarily cost-effective in that scenario. The next we have lectures, where it's simply just training presented to a large group. It may include some live demonstrations on how the system works. And again, it works for larger groups. This is probably the most popular type of training. And it can be good. It's good for beginners that have no foundational knowledge or experience with the system. But it's not ideal for topics that require training interaction or role-playing or to reinforce concepts. It doesn't have any practice exercises along with it, so it doesn't give the users the ability to practice along and reinforce what they're learning. Next is self-guided. This is where the users typically just complete exercises on their own on how to perform tasks within the system. It's usually illustrated with screenshots. Again, this can be great because it's self-paced. It allows the user to complete it within their own schedule. It can be used as a refresher as well. But the cons to this is there's no interaction between a trainer and the trainee. Some of the users have trouble learning without that human interaction, and it doesn't include sort of knowledge checks, whether they're actually learning the material that's being presented. And finally, the combination of methods, really just looking at the best method to combine one or more methods of training, such as the lecture seminar followed by a computer-based training course, or a book-based training combined with access to a sandbox to practice those, do those practice exercises live. So again, the advantage of that is allows more a creative, flexible training program tailored to your business and your user needs, and it ultimately may save your organization some money. But the cons to that is, of course, it requires a little bit more coordination and planning, and really, a thorough analysis of what's going to be effective within your organization. So now that we've looked at some of those various methods and approaches to training, I'm going to turn it over to Richard to present on iHelp, what it is, and how it fits in creating an effective training program for your organization. Richard?
Thanks, Parm. So what is iHelp? iHelp is a context-sensitive, interactive, and very customizable help tool that's on screen in Siebel. Now, when I say that it's context-sensitive, I mean that it knows where you are and it can adjust content accordingly. It's interactive in that it shows you what to do and it can take you to where you need to go in the application. It's highly configurable. Everything you see, the content, the titles, all of that you can change. It opens up in a little pop-out panel on the left-hand side of the screen, and it'll display a list of articles that have been associated to that screen. And when you click on the title of one of the articles, you'll see step-by-step instructions, and these can include hyperlinks, direct links to places in the application that you need for a given step. You can have field and button highlights. As the user clicks on a step, the fields will be highlighted so the user can see what they're supposed to be engaging with. And as the user enters data, you can have iHelp display content depending on what they enter. So you have iHelp branch down a different path of a flowchart depending on what the user enters. And you can also include links to external resources. So this could be a process document or training materials, for example. So we'll go into this in a bit more detail once I give the demo itself, but just for an overview. Over here on the left, you see the iHelp panel, and you see that the steps are listed. Notice this red arrow pointing to the bold blue text. So this is one of the hyperlinks I was talking about. Clicking on it would bring you to the screen that you see, the Admin Clinical Product List view. But notice that under step 1, I also have the sub-steps listed out. This way that the user can click on the link, but they can also see how to do it themselves. Down at the bottom in the form applet, you'll see that some of the fields are highlighted. This is because step 3 is selected, and notice that it also lists out the fields as sub-steps of number 3. And so the idea is you tell the user what needs to go in each field, and then you show exactly where those fields are, which is a pretty good combination. So key benefits in terms of end users. One of the best parts is that iHelp is completely on demand right there in the Siebel application. There's no need to dig through a user manual or skim through a table of contents. None of that. You just open up the iHelp panel, click on your topic, and go. The content is going to be completely relevant to your organization since you can change any aspect of it. The internal links take users to where they need to go for a given step so they can get their tasks done. But by including the sub-steps under that step that has the link, you can show the user how to get to that location themselves. So as they go through the content, they learn how to do it. And the field and button highlights show users which fields they need to be working with at a particular step. The branching feature allows content to adapt to what the user is doing. And in addition to the values that the user is entering, you can also have iHelp branch according to the user's role or responsibility in Siebel, for example. The hyperlinks connect users to external resources, and so there's a wide range of options that this could be. It could be a process document, could be an SOP, it could be your e-learning system, it could be your SharePoint site. A lot of options there. All of this comes together to empower users so that they can perform the tasks themselves, which helps reduce the amount of support you'll need for Siebel. Next, key benefits in terms of administering iHelp. There's no back-end configuration required. All of the articles can be created, maintained, version controlled, all of that right there through the front-end user interface. So it means no Siebel tools, no configuration, no revalidation. You can edit and test your content in a live environment without affecting what end users are seeing. So if you want to revise an iHelp article, iHelp will create a copy for you that end users don't see. You can work with it. You can see it as a Siebel administrator, but end users won't be aware that you're working on it or anything until you finally go ahead and activate the article. And I'll talk about that more once we get to the administration section. iHelp's completely scalable, so it won't slow down as you build more and more content. And there's little to no performance impact. Remember, this is just documentation, so it's not a big load on the application. Branching includes a little bit of logic, but even that should be relatively minimal. The individual articles can easily be imported and exported right through the front-end UI. You just click on the menu. There's a little import-export option. That's good for individual articles. If you want to move a whole set of iHelp articles, in that case, you would want to use something like Siebel's Application Deployment Manager tool, which can move them in bulk. And that's really the only point where the backend comes into play. Other than moving big batches of articles, everything else you do right there through the web client. So now I'll talk about some use cases for iHelp. iHelp's good for guiding users through tasks of varying length. It's good for short tasks like data entry, for example, entering a new subject for a site where you just list out the fields, show the users where the fields are. But it's also useful for longer tasks, for example, creating protocols and other admin tasks. And for longer tasks that might span multiple screens, these view links, these internal links really help because some of these tasks go across multiple parts of the application, and by including the links there and sub-steps on how to get to where you need to be going, you help keep the users on track and have them really streamline the process. You can also use iHelp in addition to full-length instructions. You can use it for quick tips and reminders. For example, maybe some tips on how to query at a particular screen, or maybe process reminders at strategic points in the application. And in terms of the user type, iHelp's good for new users. It can guide them through the tasks until they have it down, and by including sub-steps, explaining what they're actually supposed to be doing in terms of how to navigate, iHelp can teach the users how to do it themselves. But also for experienced users, there's some tasks that just aren't performed very often, so even with experienced users, they remember they have to perform this task, but they don't remember exactly how, and each time they need to skim through this user manual. Whereas with iHelp, you don't even need to look away from Siebel. You just pop out the iHelp panel, and there it is. You see the iHelp topic, and it guides you along. Okay, so now I will give the demo. So can everyone see Siebel now?
Yep, looks good.
Cool. Okay, so there's a couple ways to access iHelp. Probably the easiest way is just this little How Do I icon. And you click it, and the iHelp panel opens up. Now you'll see that there's a pretty long list here, and I'll explain why that is in a second. But first I want to just show you the other ways of getting to iHelp. You can also click this little view menu, and here it is in the action pane. Or my favorite way, you can just use this keyboard shortcut, Control-Shift-E, to just easily pop it in and out. Now the reason this list is so long is we associate all of the iHelp articles to the home screen, so it functions like an index or a table of contents. But you'll see that as I click on these screen tabs, the list changes, and it's a lot shorter for a lot of these. So this is iHelp's context sensitivity. The article I'd like to show you today is Create Activity and Trip Report Templates. So you see that it lists the steps. How do I create activity and trip report templates? First step is navigate to the Admin Clinical Activity Templates view. So I can go ahead and just click the link, and it takes me right there. But notice that I also have the steps listed on how to do it yourself. In the Activity Templates list applet, click New. So notice that the New button, as I click on step 2, it gets elevated so that you notice where it is. So I'll click New. Then step 3, complete the following fields. Now notice once I clicked on step 3, at the bottom the fields were highlighted. So it starts with name, enter the name for the template, and I'll just be using sample values. Type, click the field control and pick an activity template type. So notice that it lists out all of the options and what all of them are for. So we'll just go ahead and use clinical protocol and description. A little sample description. With the new activity template record highlighted, click the activity template details view tab. Now you see this tab is right here, but I can also just click on the link. And it takes me to the activity template details view. Now I click for additional steps. In the activity template details list applet, click New. So I'll go ahead and do that. Complete the following fields. So it starts with activity and tells me what the values mean. So we'll go ahead and pick general and type. Click the field select button and select the appropriate type of document or task, and then it tells you that the drop-down options differ depending on the activity selected. It's always good to include helpful tips like that throughout the instructions. So we'll go ahead and just set this to do and give it a little sample description. And then it just tells you to repeat the past 2 steps. And the user would go through them until they have all of the line items for the template. And then at the end it gives some tips. Activity templates could be all documents, all tasks, activities, or a combination of both. But at this point, I'd like to back up a bit. And now look, we're at step 4 again. And so I had picked clinical protocol initially. But now I'd actually like to delete this item and change it to clinical trip report. And now let's proceed to the additional steps. Looks like
I lost you.
Yeah, it looks like we lost you, Richard.
How about now?
There you go.
Okay, sorry, it looks like minor connectivity issue. So we'll click for additional steps, and notice that it expands again. And notice that step 5 is the same, but when we get to step 6, complete the following fields, this content's actually different. And when I go to my activity field, it says for yes/no questions, click the drop-down and select checklist. Or for narrative questions, go ahead and select question. And so the content changes depending on the type of template that I'm working on. And you can make it as specific as possible for the different kinds of templates, as specific as you want. Now, I also have click for an example here. And this is one of the external links that I was talking about that can connect you to an external resource. Notice that this is a screenshot, and it can give the user an example of what the start of a complete template might look like. But this could be anything. This could be a process document. This could be training materials, e-learning site. There's a lot of possibilities here. And notice that it doesn't affect what's going on in Siebel. And then it just tells you to repeat the last steps until you're done. So I won't go through and create a bunch of records just now. But that should give you a general overview of how you can use iHelp. Notice that the tips, you can include tips at the end, and you make it specific to the item that the user is working on. And then you can also have additional iHelp topics down here at the bottom to link to related topics. And you can also return to the main menu for that screen. So that concludes the demo portion. And now I will return to the slides. Okay. So now we'll talk about how the iHelp content is administered and how content is developed. So it's all done through one screen, the admin iHelp screen. And the primary view in the screen that you work with is called the designer view. And in that view, you have a little applet that's a workflow editor. It's like a really simple version of Microsoft Visio, where you just drag these steps out onto the grid. And as you drop a step and put it there, and of course you connect them with these little arrows, and you can connect to multiple steps to create the branches like I just showed you. Once you drop a step onto the grid, it will appear in the Explorer applet down at the bottom, where it says iHelp item and lists each item. And when you click on the item, you'll see the form applet will populate with all of the elements for that iHelp. So the name, the view, the caption. The caption is just what the step displays, its content. So step 1, that's the caption. The view, for example, is where you specified the view associated with that step, which will affect things like where the view link will point to, where that will take you if you include one. It will also affect which fields are available for highlighting and all of that sort of thing. After you connect steps with the branches, and if you're connecting a step to multiple other steps, in that case you go to the branching part of the designer view, and you can specify the rule that you want it to branch according to. It's usually really useful to have the same person entering or administering the iHelp content as to be the same person writing the content. That way it all goes through one person, and it's really easy for them to get it all in. But also, if these roles are fulfilled by different people, it's pretty simple to have the steps in a Word document and collaborate that way, and then you send it to the iHelp administrator, and they can go ahead and enter it. You can usually just copy and paste right into the caption box, adding formatting tags and link tags as needed there. iHelp comes with a built-in version control system. So when you first create a new iHelp article, it'll start out with a status of in progress at version 0. And when iHelp has a status of in progress, end users cannot see it unless you specifically make it visible to them. But normally they cannot see it. Only the Siebel administrator can, is the usual practice. And you can test them, you can edit them, and you can make it visible to yourself while it's in progress, but not visible to your end users until you go ahead and click Activate. Once you activate it, end users can see it. If there's an old version, they can no longer see that one. That one would become outdated, and they only see the newer version. Once the status becomes active, editing becomes locked, and the iHelp is in production, basically. After that point, you can either deactivate or revise the iHelp. If you deactivate it, it becomes not visible to end users, and its status changes to inactive, and that's basically it. You can always reactivate it. If you decide to revise the article, which is the usual case, iHelp will create a copy. It will create a new version. It will increment the version number, and it will give it a status of in progress. At this point, the end user experience has not changed at all. The previous article is still active, so it's still the only one that they'll see. The in progress version is only visible to the administrator, and by default not even to him. You have to specifically change it. And again, you entered the process of editing and testing it as a Siebel administrator. And then once you're ready, you click Active, and only at that point does the old one become not visible and the new one replaces it from the point of view of the end user. And the previous version is still there, it doesn't get deleted, it's still there, so you can always revert to an older version if desired. So that concludes the content. I'll go ahead and summarize the features at this point. So iHelp's a context-sensitive, interactive, and very customizable help system, and it features links, highlighting, and workflow branching. You can assist users with a variety of tasks, short, long, and it helps them learn the tasks as they go through the content. And I think that's one of the most important parts. It's not a wizard-type interface. It's a guide that teaches them how to perform their tasks and will help them. It'll link them to the locations in the application and show them where the fields are, so they can both complete their tasks, they can get their tasks done, but also learn at the same time. You can use iHelp for quick tips, reminders, links to external resources, screenshots. All of this comes together to empower users to help themselves to get trained on their own, and reduces the amount of support you need for Siebel users, all while being scalable and not slowing down system performance. So now I will hand it back over to Param, who will talk about how BioPharm can help.
Great, thank you, Richard. So I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that we are a full-service consultancy that provides services and products related to Siebel Clinical and the implementation of Siebel Clinical. What I wanted to do for this webinar, since it is on the topic of iHelp and training, is describe a little bit more in detail some of the specific offerings that we have related to that. So when it comes to training, we can provide demonstrations of system functionality itself, as well as our training products such as iHelp. We can do detailed workshops with your organizations and help you determine the best approach for training based on your specific needs and constraints. We've done very thorough training analyses for clients to essentially develop a training plan or a training program and the approach to training that they can either execute on their own with their own resources, or we also do custom training development, which can include training documentation such as user guides, role guides, work instructions, job aids, etc., training delivery content, e-learning modules, and of course custom iHelp development as well. We can also deliver the training to your super users as a train-the-trainer model, where we not only train on the system and the functionality, but also deliver key training concepts to your trainers so we can ensure that your trainers are, in fact, ready to deliver the training themselves. So as part of that, we have training concepts, we have teachbacks, we have assessments on the super users that are within your organization that are set to do end user training. And we can also convert all your existing training material that you may have into iHelp articles as appropriate. The great thing about iHelp is that not only can you roll out iHelp articles that have system functionality or system steps included, but also process steps, so you can make them very, very specific to your organization, to your process, and thereby achieving more adherence to your procedures. So with regard to some of the product offerings that we have a Siebel CTMS iHelp package that can be purchased. This includes 30-plus iHelp articles that can be deployed on any Siebel CTMS system and then tailored to meet your specific system's configuration. So the iHelp articles that we have across the entire application are obviously, they're packaged with our, they're designed to be packaged as an add-on to our Ascend system and that configuration, but certainly we can, you can take the iHelp package that we developed and tailor it to your specific system's configuration. As I mentioned before, also we do have an iHelp administration training course, which will train you on how to actually create iHelp articles on your own and deploy that content within your own system. Richard showed some of those administration features and developing content. So essentially that course goes through A to Z in how to create iHelp content, how to deploy iHelp content, how to translate iHelp your own training into the iHelp articles that you saw today. And also, if you'd like to sort of test drive some of the features and functionality of our Ascend Siebel CTMS and also test drive the iHelps that are available, we do have options available for access into BioPharm Sandbox environment as well. So these are some of the offerings that we have available, and we can also, of course, do custom work, specific to your organization's needs as well. So with that, I think that brings us to the end of our webinar today and brings us to our question and answer session. So Eugene, I'll hand it back to you to manage through that.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. So before we actually move to the questions, I'll give it another minute or so for you guys to ask your questions in the chat feature. So just type them in and we will answer them. And you will remain anonymous. And keep in mind that some of the questions that came in already were answered in the presentation, but they were asked possibly prior to the answer being given. So, well, either way, we're going to answer those questions again just for everyone's benefit as well. So we'll give it another 30 seconds before we begin the questions. All right, so we will move on to the first question, and that is, do you provide a Train the Trainer course / program?
Yes, so with any and all of our systems, we do provide Train the Trainer courses, and that's actually our preferred method of training. We can do end user training as well. But we find that it's more advantageous for the organization to identify super users, identify trainers that can go through a train-the-trainer program on the system, and then deliver the training to the end users. And again, like I said, our train-the-trainer course is not simply just training on the system. We actually go through and apply and train on adult learning theory, as well as training concepts that will prepare those trainers and super users to actually effectively deliver the training. And as part of that train-the-trainer program, we do have assessments and sort of teach-backs and opportunities to gauge the readiness of the trainer as well. And in some cases, after the train-the-trainer course, when your organization is actually doing the first few end-user trainings, we can be available to basically support those trainers if they're, if it's their first time actually doing the training. The benefit of this, of course, when we're doing train-the-trainer, we're training on the system and how to train. When you deliver end-user training, you can actually incorporate SOPs and process training, as well as the system training during the end-user training. So this gives you the opportunity to weave those process pieces in. And then, as part of the train-the-trainer, we also provide you with all of the delivery content, so all the slides, all of the exercises, and help you with creating data within the system, specific to your training. So all of that is typically included in a train-the-trainer program.
Fantastic, thank you. Second question, iHelp is programmed based on the user's role and not per protocol. Could you kindly confirm that?
So if I understand the question correctly, so yes, so iHelp can be deployed specific to the user roles that are defined in the system. So if there's iHelp articles that show up on, let's say, the protocol screen, you can tailor that to only show up for study managers. So if I'm logged in as someone else that has sort of read-only access to the protocol screen, and I really don't do anything, in my particular role to enter and view data, that iHelp article, doesn't necessarily need to show up for me. So you can actually, when you do that administration, part of the administration is deciding which user roles get to see and access that iHelp.
Thank you. When you mention the individual articles, does it mean reference materials like GCP E6 document and not the protocol document, or vice versa?
So I think, so when we're mentioning individual articles in the context of today's webinar, we're referring to the specific iHelp articles. So each of those links that were present in the demo, so if I go back to this slide here, this would be one iHelp article creating a product. So each of those links that are visible to the user on the home page or subsequent screens is what we're referring to as iHelp articles. So our Siebel CTMS iHelp content has 30 different 30-plus different iHelp articles included in it, which means it walks through 30 different tasks within the system, and that's what we're referring to at that point.
Great. Does BioPharm deliver iHelp pre-configured?
Yes. So our Siebel CTMS iHelp content package does come pre-configured. So like I said, there's 30-plus iHelp articles within that, and they're designed and delivered specifically to the Ascend configuration of Siebel Clinical. So obviously, any time you have Siebel Clinical implemented, there's different configurations, namely different fields potentially visible, different terminology, things like that. So when you get these pre-configured iHelp articles, some of them will be relevant and some of them may need to be tailored to your specific configuration. But we deliver that package. We deliver that package in its entirety, and then we can tailor that for you, or we can give you the administration course that allows you to tailor that yourself for your organization.
So someone just asked if you can give an example of one of those articles that is included as an example.
Actually, so Richard, can you share your screen again, and on the home page, if you can just show them the list of articles that are in the system?
Sure. 1 second.
And we may want to leave the system up just in case there's other questions around specific examples that they want to be able to see.
Sure. Okay, can everyone see it?
No, I don't see it.
I think you have to share your application.
Sure.
There it is, okay. So as you can see, these are some of the iHelp articles that are in the system. So creation of products, programs, protocols, regions, subjects, enrolling subjects, generating ad hoc payments, final payments. So these are the list of tasks that users are doing in the system, and these are a variety of different users, because you can see things like update LOVs, view audit trail. Those are things that the administrator would be doing, versus the study teams that are creating subjects, and finance people that are folks that are doing payments related to investigator payments. So this is sort of a list of indicative of those 30-plus iHelp articles that are available in our iHelp package.
Great. Next question is, do you have to enter a sequence number, or is it automatically done in the system by itself?
I can answer that one. You don't have to enter a sequence number. You might have seen that the steps had a number at the beginning. That's just to sort them in the Explorer view. You ordered the steps by connecting them in the workflow editor.
Okay, great. I think the next question was answered, but we can go ahead and answer it again. Is, can we customize our own iHelp based on our operational needs?
Yeah, and that that's an affirmative. So any iHelps that you either purchase or you create, you can customize it for your own operational needs and put in process steps. So it's very, very flexible in how you deliver and deploy that.
Next question is, in your experience, who typically manages the content of iHelp articles?
So typically it's going to be somebody within either your training department. So if you have a training department that is responsible for delivering training and maintaining training for a particular system, it's typically those individuals. If you do not have a dedicated sort of training organization, then it's typically somebody within your clinical organization that's responsible for the standard processes across your system. So the key takeaway is that iHelp can be created, deployed, administered, maintained by someone other than IT, because it happens directly in the iHelp administration within the system, so it doesn't require it doesn't require a developer type of resource. It doesn't require an IT resource to actually maintain and manage and deploy this to your users within the system. So it's typically somebody that's responsible for either training or to maintain sort of standard operating procedures within the processes that are supported by the system.
Next question is, at what point in an implementation should iHelp be rolled out?
So you can deploy your iHelp at any time. So it doesn't have to be tied to a specific release of your system. So in the phase 1 or your initial deployment of the system, you can actually focus some specific iHelps that you think will be useful. But one of the things that we've seen done really, really effectively is after you deploy the system in the first go-round, if you find that it needs to be tied to your support organization. So if you find that users are having particular issues having issues in certain areas of the application, you can actually then take that knowledge and build an iHelp specific to that, so that you can focus your iHelp creation on the areas of the application that the users have the most issues with. So that's typically what we've seen. But like Richard said, I think that complex tasks that require the user to go in multiple screens, multiple views to actually complete a task, that's something that you can do right off the bat, and I think that's worthwhile, just so that you can ensure compliance around that particular process within the system.
Next question is, can you show an example of how the iHelp can be branched based on user role?
An example as in an actual demonstration? We do have some content that I was testing out to test the branching functionality according to user responsibility. So if we want, I can go through and show how it's set up and how it would work if we have time. What do you think, Eugene?
Why don't we wait till we answer a few more questions, and if we have time at the end, we can do that. Otherwise, we can show that example over the phone to that individual.
Sure.
So the next question is, will old versions of iHelp documents still be available for administrators?
Yes. I'll actually just go ahead and show you. This is the administration iHelp screen. And notice that it lists a set of documents. And let's just focus on one to make things a little simpler. Create products. Here I have version 10 and version 9, and this is one where I actually went through and deleted some of the older ones. So maybe that's not the best example, but for example, you see Access Application Help has 5 versions. I went through and deleted some of these to reduce clutter as they were in a pretty finished state. You obviously don't have to do that. And so you see in this column there's the version number. And for example, for adjust payment amounts, it goes from version 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a yes to that question.
Great, thank you. Next question is, how long is the Train the Trainer course, and does the trainer need to have programming knowledge?
Specifically to iHelp, I guess, Richard, you can speak to that. So iHelp administration course, the length of that, and do they need the programming knowledge?
Sure. The iHelp administration course is actually only just 1 day. And in terms of programming knowledge, no, you don't need programming knowledge to develop iHelp content. You just need to be able to manipulate this little workflow editor to drag the steps out onto here, to connect them using branches. You'll see that these fields are grayed out because this is one that's currently locked. Its status is outdated because there's a newer version. But if I were to go to an active one, for example, I could go in and revise it. This creates a new version. And then I can go and enter in the content over here. And for things like just what the step says, it's fairly simple. You just paste it in right there. You need to know how to make text bold, but that's just as simple as adding, a tag, some very, very basic HTML, and it actually gives you a little tip on how to do that. The only thing that I would say comes even close to programming would be specifying how to make iHelp's branch. And even in that one, you just need to specify a condition under which it branches according to. And this is usually something like this field equals this value, or is greater than, or is not equal to. So it's just one operator. So that's fairly simple as well. Specifying the view, you just need to go to the help about view, and you can use that to determine which view you're on. So it's good to be slightly technical, or at least go through training for this. But no programming knowledge required.
Great. Could I create the most frequently asked questions before we go live with our system?
Yeah,
So,
of course.
yeah,
go ahead, Farm.
No, I was just want to clarify. So I guess that if that's simply just a one iHelp article that has a listing of most frequently asked questions, and then put that on the home page, certainly you can do that with iHelp and keep it there where all the users can access it. The great thing about it is iHelp in general is that as your process changes, or if there's new things, so like this FAQ document, if there's a frequently asked question iHelp article that you created, as you get more questions that you want to add to that list, you can do that in real time. So again, you don't have to wait for another release. You basically just go into the iHelp administrator, revise it, add the questions that you want, and then hit activate, and then all the users are then able to see that updated FAQ document. So it's really, really easy to deploy in real time. There's no system downtime with any of the iHelp deployment administration that you're doing. You're not changing the user experience at all, and they'll always have the latest version of the iHelp. If you're administrating and maintaining it properly. So as if things change in your process and an SOP changes, for example, the system is flexible enough so you can actually make those changes and push that out to all the users in real time without taking the system down and issuing a new release or point release of the system, which is great.
Great. Thank you so much. So unfortunately, we don't have time to demo that last bit of functionality that somebody requested, but we can get in touch with you and give you a demonstration of that at a separate time. So I just wanted to share with you some additional resources. You could find most of these things on the Oracle website, except for the very last item, which is information about our iHelp course, which can be found online at BioPharm.com. So again, you can find most of these resources from Oracle's website. And the last slide that we have is a Contact Us slide, which has information for our North America sales contact as well as our EMEA contact. You can also email us at info@biopharm.com. Alternatively, you can email Padam and Richard on their own personal email addresses, which we showed you in the very beginning. And we look forward to hearing from you. So that right there wraps everything up. I would like to remind everyone that today's webinar will be available on biopharm.com within 24 hours for you to review and share with your colleagues. I also want to mention that our next CTMS webinar is April 25th. The title of the webinar is Clinical Trial Supply Management with Siebel CTMS. Feel free to register on our website if it's of any interest. That said, we thank you so much for your participation and hope that the information we provided you today was helpful. Have a great rest of the day and evening. We look forward to having you at future webinars. Thank you so much.